The next speaker that we've invited today, Kurtis Vaagen from Vaagen Brothers, is an example of creative adaptation to opportunity that's environmentally responsible. How do you manage the forests in our greatest area that is beneficial economically and beneficial environmentally? And so Kurtis Vaagen is here to talk about some of that intermediate. We're not talking about old growth forests now, we're talking about small logs. Kurtis?
Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Kurtis Vaagen, Vice President of Vaagen Brothers Lumber, and current president of our NUFIC is our collaborative that is kind of based in the Colville National Forest. So kind of a fairly well-rounded outlook on the forest products industry. I kind of grew up in it. It's a family-owned business. So apologize, I don't have any fancy slides. I hit the Wayback Machine last week and caught the old school flu, so I didn't really get to spend a lot of time on my presentation. So I'm just going to talk to you guys if I'm too boring, and I know it's right before lunch, so I'll try and hurry it up and maybe take some questions. So Vaagen Brothers Lumber is a family-owned business. We're based out of Colville, Washington, which is basically home base, and then we take material from our Usk facility, which is straight north from Newport, and we also have a facility in Midway, BC. So inadvertently, we are an international lumber producing company. Basically, that Midway, BC is right across the border from Curlew, so it kind of completes our wood basket circle. I did appreciate John's foresight to let you know that we're not out there harvesting old growth forests, because I could imagine you guys might get up and walk out before I had a chance to speak with all of you. So what we do is we use innovative technology to take that smaller diameter tree and create that 2x4, 2x6, and 2x8 material. So we take down from the largest diameter is a 12.5 inch, so it's about the size of a dinner plate. That's our biggest tree that we can stuff through our machine, and it goes all the way down to a 4.5 inch top that we're able to get two 2x4s out of that log. We do take down to like a 1.5 inch whip, and that pretty much just makes chips for paper and or playground material there. So we kind of try and take the gamut of everything that comes off of the forest. And the way we look at that is it really reduces the slash that's out on the ground, and it makes for a cleaner project. So to us, that is the most important thing that we do is utilization. We're taking what was historically put in a slash pile. These things weren't offered in timber sales because nobody wanted them. So in the late 80s, my dad went to the Scandinavian countries and Finland and Sweden and Norway to really understand, for one, where we come from. We're Scandinavian in descent, and two, to understand how they do this and why they are considered leaders in our industry. Their utilization, they've taken it to the next level. And I don't think that that's where we want our forests. We don't want it to look like that because it lacks a lot of structure. But you go over there and they have a return interval on their forest land that is so impressive, and they're so proud. The foresters over there, I mean, they're all dressed appropriately, they're wearing uniforms. It's just a different way to look at forestry, and they take it down to multiple entries in the same site, and they have such a light touch. But like I said, they lack a lot of that diversity. So you can walk through some of these landings or these forests with no shoes on. But that doesn't give us the diversity and the structure of what the, excuse me, the forest floor really needs to be able to produce healthy trees, healthy plants and other species they're just lacking because they've basically turned it into industrial forest land. It's beautiful. They do a very good job at it. It's not clear cut. It doesn't look bad, but you don't walk through that and have that feeling of this is a wild space. So what we've done here, I think, is mimic some of what they've done there and kept it wild. So when you return to some of the sites that we have gone out and extracted that lower value material, what's left is appropriate. We're leaving those larger diameter trees, and really in the forest industry, it's not about what you take, it's about what you leave. So when you walk away from that stand, you're able to look up above the ground level, because there's no real way to harvest timber without leaving some slash on the ground. I mean, maybe someday we will figure that out, but right now you're gonna have some slash. So especially right now at this time of year, you're going to see all that because everything hasn't greened up. It takes a few years for that stuff to break down, and that is structure. And then I think one thing that's really missing that we're starting to get is that prescribed fire. So after these harvest treatments are done on the ground, then we're able to come in and put fire back in there, and it really brightens everything up. It brings back just the natural regen of those serotinous cones that historically in the past century had returned over and over with the tribal leaders when they would go out and they would burn things on that regular interval. We've gone so far away from that the fires now of today aren't really giving us a net positive. They're releasing more carbon and they're sterilizing soil to a point where a lot of these areas aren't coming back as the forests that they would have prior. I believe that forest fires are a good thing when they're appropriately sized. I do not like seeing 200,000 acre forest fires that have that stand replacing across that entire landscape, because it really doesn't suit the biodiversity of what that forest can really produce. It really turns into a monocultural site that I think that's kind of how we got in this situation in the first place. So I'm going to go into a little bit of the utilization I've talked about, but now innovation. So when my dad went over to the Scandinavian countries, he saw what's called a hew saw. It was so popular over there that we took it upon ourselves to bring this hew saw to North America. It was actually the first hew saw in North America, and nobody knew what it was. It was so innovative, and now we're using this product that people had historically thrown in a slash pile, that now there's a sort that is hew wood. So we're able to really bring that material from that was always in that slash pile. Now it's being extracted to the point where we're able to produce 2x4s, 2x6s, and 2x8s out of that material that historically just got burned. So we're really proud to see what the industry has done all across the entire industry, really, and changing the ideal of, okay, we don't need to go after the big old growth forest, because when we spend time in the forest, those are the trees that we really feel most connected to. And I like to be able to see them and really what they have done for that entire site for generations is so impressive. I really like to see the fire scars from whether it's a natural fire or even some of those old fire scars from the Native Americans. After they would hunt, they'd torch it off and head back to camp or wherever they were going in their nomadic ways. So it's very interesting to me to see those steps and to be part of an industry that has taken it upon ourselves to be part of that solution. So to me, the most important thing, I mean, utilization is great, but it's the treatment on the ground. I mean, even if we had big slash piles and we were doing it properly, we could have positive treatment on the ground. So now having those smaller slash piles, it looks a little better, and we're able to really reduce that fire risk, reduce that carbon footprint, and then have fire return in an interval that is healthy for the forest. And really it says a lot when I talk to tribal leaders and they say, you know, the best way that we could have fight forest fire is to be able to put our forest in a state that it can take that fire and we get to sit back and watch it burn appropriately. That's a goal that I hope everybody in our industry holds on to, because we've all seen the forest fires of the last 10 years and how big these forest fires have gotten. Everybody's choking on smoke. It's so unhealthy. But there's a huge difference in a prescribed fire, a managed fire, and a wildfire. So I hope if you guys could get one thing from me is just to understand the difference in fire, because it's so important to our landscape. And in our industry, we're able to prepare that forest for those fire intervals so it gets back to a healthy state. We've had some pretty cool projects on the Colville National Forest. The A to Z project, which was out in the Mill Creek drainage. That was the largest privately funded NEPA, successful privately funded NEPA project on the National Forest to date. There are others that have not had the success, and really that came back to our collaborative partners being able and willing to support that project because it was so large. But that drainage had some real forest health issues and a lot of fire risk because it hadn't been treated for so long. One of the things I'd like to leave you guys with is what can you do, and what we can all do is, to me, it's become a forest user. A lot of you guys down here in Spokane probably don't go far up north into the forest. And just being a forest user and being connected to the forest, I think says a lot to our next generation, and taking kids out there and letting them understand what the forest means to Spokane and this greater area. I mean, it's water. It's such a huge aspect of life. The forest cleans our water, and I think that we've gotten away from it. I see some of the users up there now, and they just don't get the information, and they don't have that light touch. So how do we get that back to where people are re-engaged, understanding the forest, understanding forest management, and knowing that there's a way to do this that has a net positive. It's not just an extraction industry. We're really making better forests for generations. So I mentioned collaboration. It's something that we truly believe in, because collaboration is a group of stakeholders that gets together. We meet regularly, and you go over the sensitive topics, some of those hot button items, and you come together and you figure out what the best way forward is. And it's not just one or two people, it's a group of close to 10 or 15 and even 20 folks. So look into your local collaboratives, your forest collaboratives. I think it's important, and they've done so much good work. The Northeast Washington Forest Coalition is celebrating its 20-year anniversary this year. That's very impressive. It's looked at as one of the most successful collaborations in the nation. Then another thing, since I don't have my fancy presentation up here, would be to go to our website and look at some of our videos. And we have a media guy that does a lot of our outreach, and he does such a good job of putting together these videos, and they tell a better story than I ever will. So if you can, it's just vaagenbros.com, And really, we're proud of the work that we do, not just inside the sawmill and the team that we've built in a small community of Colville, which is about 5,000 people. We're really proud of the contractors and how they've changed the way that they extract a resource as well as they can. We're proud of being part of a small community, and we are just proud to be a part of the solution. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be willing to give a stab at some answers. Oh, that's on my list here. I cruised right over it. So yes, cross-laminated timber, fantastic question. So I don't know if any of you have heard of CLT, cross-laminated timber. We're basically taking that small diameter material and face gluing that material together. And instead of making these beautiful beams, you're making panels so that there's a lot to be learned in cross-laminated timber as far as the drying and sizing of the material has to be so consistent. And I think that the desire is there to see that turn into a sustainable building solution for high-rise buildings. But it's something that's so new in North America that there's a lot to be learned, and it's going to be very impressive in the next 15 years. I think that we're going to see some high-rise buildings either locally in Spokane. I mean, I know there's been some CLT projects here, but I would love to see some high-rise buildings built out of wood because, I mean, I got to say this is one of the most beautiful venues I've ever spoke at, but my eye goes straight to the rafters immediately. I look up, I want to know what this is built out of, and I would love to see more timber because it's a part of my life and something that I feel fondly and dearly. You have no more time for questions, or?
It's a little advertisement for the cathedral. That's the idea. Thanks, Kurtis, for demonstrating the idea of a cathedral, right? So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think when I think of cross-laminated timbers, my analogy is like macro plywood. Is that it? Would that be right?
Yeah, I mean you're basically gluing things together to get that strength value. There's some other things that are very consistent with plywood, but you're also getting that R value and that sealed concept. So, I mean, it's very impressive when you see a CLT building and how sealed, insulated, and beautiful they really are. So,
I had occasion to travel to Europe, to Denmark, and I was in a building, and it was described to me as built with these cross-laminated timbers that they'd gotten from Vaagen brothers. It's like global leadership right here. Thanks very much.
Thank you.